Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, this particular lesson is dealing with how to determine what type of market structure a particular industry is. It's actually pretty straightforward. We're back to the math equations though. So if we have a market and we have a list of firms and we have the amount of revenue each firm brings in, we could take a look at this information, and applying one of two methods, we can determine whether the industry is perfectly competitive, monopolistically competitive, an oligopoly, or a pure monopoly. So if you take a look at the screen here, we have the four-firm concentration ratio, and we have the Hirschman index, or the HHI. I can pronounce HHI. Okay, so if you take a look down here at the bottom, kind of gives you, here's that slide scale I showed you in class, where on one extreme you have perfect competition, many firms, perfect substitutes. You remember the characteristics. On the other side of the extreme is your pure monopoly, where it's a unique product, and there's only one firm. It's a pure monopoly. Then in between, we have the imperfect competition types, which consist of monopolistic competition and oligopoly. If we apply the four-firm concentration ratio, when we calculate our numbers, if it's close to zero, it's perfect competition. If it's close to zero up to 60%, it's monopolistic competition. If it's 61% to 99%, it's an oligopoly. If the numbers come out to be 100%, it's a pure monopoly. If it's the HHI, we have close to zero, perfect competition, close to zero to 1800, monopolistic competition, 1801 to 9999, oligopoly, 10,000 is a pure monopoly. So those are your numerical values. So let's take a look at how this works. Now, we are going to apply this to Skyrim. We are going to take a look at a number of firms that exist in the world of Skyrim. The White File, the Braidwood Inn, the Winking Skeever, and the Ragged Flagon, the War Maidens, and another 15 and another 30 firms. So we're going to take a look at these different firms that exist in this particular world. It's an awesome world. If you haven't been there, you should visit. All right, so here's what we got. Here are the firms from the world of Skyrim. Here's what we have in sales revenue in terms of dollars. So the White File brings in $400, or gold pieces if you're in Skyrim. The Braidwood Inn has 325. The Winking Skeever has 300. You see it there before you. What we want to do is, first thing we need to do is we need to find out the size of this market. It's very simple. Add 400 to 325 to 300 to 280 to 150. And then we have 100 each of 15 firms. So 15 times 100 added to the previous numbers. For 30 firms, it's 50 each. So 30 times 50, add that into your equation. And when it's all said and done, bam, there's your market size. So the entire size of the market, they bring in collectively $4,455. Okay? So that's step one. Now, if you look down here at the bottom, our next step is to find the top four firms. That means find the four firms that bring in the highest amount of revenue. That'd be the White File, Braidwood Inn, Winking Skeever, and the Ragged Flagon. The next thing we want to do is we want to find the percent of market share each of those four firms possess. Well, what that means is the White File, $400 is what percent of the total market. So that's what we're taking a look at. 400, hey, that's white. We can't see that. Let me try that again. 400 is what percent of 4,455. That's what we're going for. So if you calculate your numbers, bam, we find out that 400 is 8.9% of 4,455, which means the White File possesses 8.9% of the entire market. Crunch your numbers for the Braidwood Inn, and we find out that the Braidwood Inn possesses 7.2% of the market, the Winking Skeever, 6.7% of the market, and the Ragged Flagon, 6.2% of the market. Now, with the four-firm concentration ratio, we stop there. We're only assessing the top four firms. We're not worried about the War Maidens and so on. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to take these 4% and add them together. Even I can do that math. 8.9 plus 7.2 plus 6.7 plus 6.2 equals 29%. Therefore, we know that the top 4 firms possess 29% of the market. So if we take a look at number 4 down here, 29% falls in this range. 29% is not close to 0. That falls kind of somewhere in between 1 and 60, which means this is a monopolistically competitive market. So this is monopolistic competition. That's what this industry is. And of course, we can go back to the slide scale, and we see for firm, we're sitting in here, monopolistic competition. Okay, so that's the easy one. The second one we're going to do is the HHI. The HHI gets a little more complicated. So taking a look down here at the bottom, get my little highlighter here, we're going to look at the top 50 firms rather than the top 4. We're going to go ahead and calculate the percent market share for each of those 50 firms. And here's where we get a little bit more complicated. We add extra steps. We're going to square the percent of each of those 50 firms. Then we're going to sum the squared percents, and then we're going to hold it up to this numerical value. So in the previous screen, we had already calculated the market size, and we had already calculated the percent of the market of the top 4 firms. So now what we want to do is calculate the percent of the market for all the other firms. War Maidens, if we calculate that, that's 3.3% of the market. And then for the next 15 firms, it's going to be 2.2% of the market for each of those 15 firms. So 2.2%, 2.2%, 2.2%, 2.2%, 2.2%, 15 times. And then you do the same thing for the next 30 firms. 50 is 1.67% of 4,455, 30 times. Okay, so that's step 2 down here. The next thing we want to do is we want to go through and we want to square each of these percents. So 8.9 squared, 7.2 squared, 6.7 squared, 6.2 squared, 3.3 squared, 2.2 squared is 4.84 15 times. 1.67 squared is 2.79 30 times. Why 15? Because there are 15 firms, each of them possessing 2.2% of the market. Why 30 times down here? Because there are 30 firms, each of them possessing 1.67% of the market. Do not do the 15 times and the 30 times until after you have squared their percent market share. This is when you look at all of the firms. So basically, we're looking at 4.84 15 times, and that equals 72.6, and you see the same for the 30 firms. So then we go on to step number 4. We want to sum the squared percents. All that means is add all of these bad boys together. If we add them together, 79.21, 51.84, you see that? We wind up with a numerical value of 381.57. Now we take a look at our numerical scale here in step number 5. 381.57 is not close to 1. It's somewhere between close to 1 and 1,800, which means, bam, this is a monopolistically competitive market. This HHI confirms what we saw with the 4-firm concentration ratio. So the two values both agree. The HHI is a little more narrowly focused, a little more specific, mainly because we're considering a much larger sample pool, 50 firms instead of the mere 4 in the 4-firm concentration ratio. However, both of these actually serve its purpose, which is to let us know what kind of market structure a particular industry is competing in. In class, we will discuss the practical application of these and how these numerical values might apply to mergers in our antitrust laws that exist in the United States. But we'll do that in class. Now, go out and play Skyrim. You know you want to.